Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett is a very interesting fight, but a lot of people are going into this thinking that Paddy's just essentially going to run right through Justin Gaethje due to the grappling difference between them, which is true. Paddy does have a distinct grappling advantage. Justin Gaethje doesn't really grapple that well. He's continuing his training with Jorge Santiago, and he has Fares Ziam in his training camp as one of his sparring partners to mimic Paddy, it seems. Ziam is tall and long, and he has pretty good grappling. Shy of Paddy's overall, I think, but it's a good body to train with. He knows this is his last run to a title shot. If he loses this one, it's pretty much done for him. Paddy Pimblett is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, very lethal on the ground, difficult to handle in positions, and his submissions are quite difficult to escape. But even though Justin Gaethje is shown to have abysmal Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, Paddy Pimblett's wrestling, though, is honestly just like rudimentary. His initial shots aren't that fast, and they're timed quite poorly. Like, he will shoot when Tony Ferguson hits him to the body with a jab, and that jab obstructs the takedown, creates separation in between them. He could use it as a crossface as well to hold it off too. Like, he defends the takedown altogether, then Paddy pulls guard when Tony tries to go for a Darce choke. And Gaethje's not going to go for a Darce choke. He should retire if he does. Or he shoots when Michael Chandler ducks with a high guard, colliding straight into the guard, and he sees it before. His eyes are on Chandler, seeing that level change from him, and he still proceeds to shoot into it. And who else do we know ducks like this? Justin Gaethje. Many times, he will duck his head when the opponent advances forward, but he does duck at an angle, right? He blades his stance more. There could be an opening for Paddy to get around the back like this, but Gaethje can work with that left underhook to prevent that, so he does have a defensive maneuver there for him if Paddy tries to shoot and rotate around the back. But Paddy Pimblett's timing of his initial shot is not great at all. Chain wrestling is so much better, because even in the sequence with Chandler where he collided into the guard, he still secured the takedown. So at first he was going for the double, but because he got halted for a split second, he settled for the single leg, grabbing onto that lead leg that's closer to him. And from there he rotates and lifts the leg up, causing an imbalance. Chandler has to crawl up to the fence, and Paddy's all over him, grabs the body lock, picks him up and slams him, just overwhelming him and muscling him in that position. Or even here against Tony Ferguson, he tries to duck under the jab, eats an uppercut that intercepts him, but he still completes the takedown. So Tony has the crossface on the left side. He grabs onto the single leg, rotates and sits out to reverse the positions, getting Tony's back up against the fence. And as it seems like Tony's trying to lift that chin with his left hand, Paddy just completely muscles him, lifts him up with the single leg, and dumps him. So those are some moments where Paddy's still able to complete the takedown, even if the initial shot was obstructed, showing that his chain wrestling seems to be more capable than his initial takedown. Now, how does this work against Justin Gaethje? So firstly, he's pretty fast on his feet. It's like the first phase of takedown defense, not allowing the opponent to grab a hold of them, right? So Gaethje's speed is going to be an advantage in this, not only from his footwork, but also comparably, Paddy's not that fast with his shots. Gaethje is going to be probably the fastest guy in defending the takedown out of anybody he's fought so far. So Justin Gaethje has been taken down a total of 7 times in his career. 2 of those were his first 2 fights, Michael Johnson, Eddie Alvarez. They say Michael Chandler took him down once. I don't even know why they count that, because that was a takedown in the 3rd round where Chandler slammed him, and Gaethje rolled out of it instantly. Like, there was no control whatsoever, not even a second of control from Chandler. So it shouldn't be counted. But it is to note that Chandler did get on the hips with the double leg successfully. But Gaethje fought that differently. He was generally less mobile against Chandler. He was standing his ground a lot more than I expect him to do against Paddy. Right? He wants Paddy to like run into his counter punches and try to get Paddy to fall into his range, which is going to require some good footwork, you know? He doesn't want to stay at the end of Paddy's punches. But we're going to talk about all 4 takedowns since COVID that Gaethje failed to defend. 2 from the Khabib fight and 2 from the Fiziev rematch. And all 4 of those takedowns had a leg kick take a part of it. Whether it was Khabib timing it as he was quickly moving to the left, grabbing onto the leg, shooting, landed on his knees, turned the angle to continue the takedown and secured it. It's still crazy Gaethje didn't defend any of those submission attempts on the ground. No resistance at all. It's insane. But the takedown landed due to the leg kick. Fiziev landed both of his takedowns by timing the leg kick as well. The second one was the inverted triangle, and that came off of the single leg, so they're counting that as well. And even Khabib's first takedown, even though it wasn't directly off the leg kick landed first. Then on his retraction, he tried to move away, and Khabib aggressively pressured him, Gaethje lost composure, crossed his feet while throwing a right hand, squaring up his hips for a perfect entry shot for Khabib. And it was also a very fast shot. Like, Paddy doesn't shoot that quickly, but he can pressure, right? We have seen this before, especially when he hurts his opponents. He will pressure forward, but it goes into the whole striking aspect of the fight, and we'll get to that later. So it wasn't directly off the leg kick, but when you land a leg kick and retract it, you want to bring that into stance. And if the opponent pressures you off of it, it can throw you off balance. So it took a part in all of these takedowns, dude. Every single one. So Gaethje desperately needs to set up these leg kicks when he fights Paddy a lot better. Khabib shot a few other times in the fight, and Gaethje was defending them, dude. There was even another one from an inside leg kick, rotated them around because of how quickly he was stepping to the left when he grabbed the single leg. And Gaethje quickly turns his hips to the side, throws in the left whizzer, and pulls Khabib up. And Gaethje pushed himself out of there in very fast succession. Like, this whole exchange was quick, dude. Watch it in real time if you can. It's at like 3 minutes and 3 seconds of the first round. Or even look at Gaethje's takedown defense in the second round against Michael Chandler. It's at like 1 minute and 42 seconds where he just explosively sprawls on that thing, throws in the left underhook, and hits the duck under to get out of there. Like, another takedown when he threw a left hook and Khabib ducked under it. He tried to grab a body lock. Gaethje was quick enough to step away, throw in another left whizzer, and angled out to his right fast enough while pushing away at Khabib, breaking his control. Justin Gaethje has very fast feet, dude. Or had, maybe. I don't know if he's still this fast because that was like 5 years ago. Gaethje's still very fast with his punches. He still explodes quickly with his overhand. But we have yet to see if his takedown defense has actually slowed down. So the takedowns could be quite difficult for Paddy Pimblett to land. And if like Paddy Pimblett grabs a hold of that single, which is a takedown that he likes to go to, Gaethje will Granby roll his way out of there, completely losing the position. But Paddy could attack with a submission similar to the way Fiziev did. So Fiziev actually attacked him with an inverted triangle once his single leg failed. And this is because he never let go of the leg the entire time. Even though he was flipped over his own head, his grip never failed. Gaethje was trying to pull his way out of there, posting on the ground, and Fiziev locked up that inverted triangle in that moment. So if Paddy's grip is strong enough where he doesn't lose control of a single leg, I'm pretty sure he can land something like this too. If his shot isn't fast enough, if his footwork is not good enough to cut off Gaethje, let's say Gaethje's moving around way too quickly and he's landing certain shots and stuff like that. Let's say the fight's playing out in that way. Gaethje usually throws the leg kick, right? And he doesn't tend to set it up that well. A lot of times there's like no setup to it. He just bangs it out there. Paddy can grab a hold of it if he gets that timing down and either lands the single leg, or when Gaethje rolls, Paddy could do something like this, similar as Fiziev. And that's the thing, dude. Honestly, Paddy Pimblett has not completed many takedowns in the UFC. Only 4 total out of his like 8 fights. But we've seen him on the ground so many times, so how does it get down there? If it's not usually from the takedowns, he only gets 28% of them, why does it seem like the fight goes to the ground so often with him? Crazy enough, sometimes it's his opponent taking him down, and they overshot the back take, or he reverses them, like Jared Gordon did, and then Gordon stood up. Or here against Michael Chandler. Chandler takes him to the ground and overshoots the back take, and Paddy reverses him. This has happened too many times in Paddy's career, bro. Like, you have to question some of the fight IQ of his opponents trying to wrestle with this guy. Like, I get it with Jordan Levitt because that's the way Levitt just fights everybody. Even though he gets guillotined and then reversed to the ground off of him shooting a takedown. Like, bro, Paddy hasn't completed many takedowns for how often the fight has gone to the ground. Surely Justin Gaethje is not going to shoot takedowns. Or what about Tony throwing up a head kick? Paddy slipped it and got caught on his face, and Tony falls. Sometimes the fight goes to the ground without Paddy even shooting a takedown. Now, we know that Justin Gaethje is not going to shoot. If he shoots, he should retire. So Paddy's grappling is going to have to rely on his offensive efforts to get the fight to the ground there from takedowns or potentially dropping Gaethje in the stand-up, which can happen. Paddy's striking is offensively potent, but there are a lot of defensive holes that I think Gaethje could absolutely blast right through. And this is why I'm saying that Justin Gaethje cannot be underestimated. I don't think it's as one-sided as a lot of people think it's going to be. We have the whole thing about the staph infection and stuff, then that could definitely impact the fight. I'm still hoping that it's not staph. But even with it, man, Gaethje is not someone to underestimate. He has some technical advantages that he can work with here. But first things first, we had to talk about the wrestling and stuff because I think if Paddy does get Gaethje to the ground, the fight is pretty much over. I don't think Gaethje can cover the gap leading into this fight. I think the path of least resistance is to keep the fight in the stand-up where he has most of his advantages, because Paddy's defense, how do I say this nicely? It's horrid, bro. It's really bad. Like, he throws a body jab as if he's about to take off like a plane, nothing guarding his head and overextended slightly. Drops hand, detaches guard, throws the right straight like a failed Superman punch, even though it wasn't a Superman punch. Rear foot off the ground, way overextending, head past his feet, dropped his hands, chin in the sky, and loses his stance. Or here, reaching left hook, dropping his guard and raising his chin. I guess if you raise your chin high enough, it becomes unreachable. Then he slaps his right straight forward instead of punching it linearly, lifts the rear foot off the ground again, drops his hands, overextends, and loses his stance into the parallel. He steps away to regain his stance and drops his guard, getting countered by Tony as he throws his left. Tony helping Paddy to look at the ceiling, and Paddy can't see the target, slapping down with his right, and drops his hands again. Or hear him throwing a bolo uppercut, swooping from under without even a feint to set it up. It's scary not to set up that punch while in the opponent's punching range. He's as open as a 24/7 CVS, bro. Uppercut falls short as Chandler retreats, and he drops his hands again for a hopping left hook that also misses, and he drops that hand too. Like, bro, the main thing that he relies on are his distance management skills. That's most of his defense. He's tall and long for the division, right? It says he's like, what, 5'10", 5'11", but I think he might be like an inch taller than Gaethje. Let's see if he's wearing like high heels or something. You know, some fighters have these lifts on. Okay, so those are definitely giving him like an inch over Gaethje. So they might be the same height actually, like 5'11", but he does have a 3-inch reach advantage. And that distance management is going to be the main line of defense. He probes with the lead hand constantly. In fact, he sets up a lot of his attacks off that lead probe and feint too. It's a huge part of his game. He'll throw the jab off of it. He'll throw the right hand off of it, the leg kicks. It's like the main thing he throws before he attacks, as well as defensively to keep the opponent at range. But Gaethje can counter this because Paddy drops that jabbing hand and pulls his guarding hand away from his own face. Lacking defense all over the place, dude. That is if you can avoid it though, because it is quite fast and he has pretty good extension. It's a snappy jab, but he drops that right hand and then he drops his jabbing hand too, both hands at his waist. Avoiding that shot is a clear opening for a counter. Gaethje can blast him to the chin with the right overhand, getting his head off the center line, and then follow up with the left hook. That combination that he was throwing at Tony Ferguson constantly, and also Jared Gordon was throwing at Paddy Pimblett, inside slip on the jab, and countering with the right hook to the body instead of an overhand. There he follows up with the left hook. It lands because Paddy detached that right guard. Look how that hand is pulled away from guarding his head. And Gaethje has shown some nice inside slips on jabs before, and counters. Although Paddy will be further away than Chandler was here. So the range needs to be adjusted. There are a lot of counter opportunities for Justin Gaethje. I mean, look at here as well. Paddy moving forward with a combination, throwing an uppercut, left hook, both hands drop at his waist after he throws each punch. Not just at the end of the combo, but for each punch, his hands fall to his waist. And his chin up is in the air. He's very tall, like he's such a vulnerable target for an overhand or a reaching left hook. Paddy says the Scousers can't be knocked out. Well, get hit too many times against Gaethje and that can very quickly change. Paddy is durable, man. Paddy's very tough, but I don't think he could take too many punches like that from Justin Gaethje. But there is that one tricky technique from Paddy that Gaethje is going to have to solve, and that is the lead hand probe. Paddy uses that technique so often, and Gaethje needs to ignore it. Just ignore the feint or use it as a signal for his attacks. I think in the beginning is going to play a big part in Paddy landing punches before Gaethje's given enough time to adjust to it. Right? There's a difference between preparing in training camp versus experiencing it in an actual fight. So however time it takes for Gaethje to adapt to it, Paddy can be tricky enough to land a jab or a right hook or something like that, maybe even conditioning Gaethje's reactions of ducking and dipping with those lead hand probes. But I think eventually Gaethje is going to adjust to it. Just like he's shown in other fights the ability to adapt, like finding the uppercuts against Fiziev. Gaethje can be pretty good at adjusting in the striking against his opponent. Paddy constantly tries to divert his opponent with that lead hand probe, and I think Gaethje needs to be less respectful of it. He cannot freeze at the end of that because he'll just be in the line of sight of those shots. keep the right hand ready to parry at all times. So the jab isn't going to be necessarily too much of an issue as long as he can just time the parry correctly. By parrying it, there will always be openings for him to land his own counter jab. He's very fast with his jab, and Paddy detaching his guard away from his head could cause a clear path to Paddy's chin. Paddy's hand isn't in position to parry a counter jab. So a simple slip or parry from Gaethje and then a counter jab would work beautifully for him. Very simple tactic. Right? The difference between him and Gaethje will keep that other hand up guarding himself. More often, there have been moments where he also detached his guard when he was reaching forward from longer distance against the shorter Fiziev, as an example. But Gaethje is more disciplined in keeping his right guard up and should be focused on that for this fight. Don't make the same mistakes as Paddy Pimblett throwing the jab, dude. And Gaethje, even with his jabs, he does drop them. So there is the opening there as well from him. You saw this constantly throughout the Tony Ferguson fight. It's very fast, but he does drop it as well. So Paddy could also land some counter shots. And Gaethje's going to have to bring that jab back to stance, dude. He needs to defend himself after he throws it. But the one difference is, Paddy I don't think is as good of a counter puncher. I don't think his style usually revolves around counter punching as much as Gaethje's does. Right? Gaethje has won so many exchanges off of counter punching, whereas Paddy usually wins off of his aggression. Like there are some moments like him landing a flying knee on Michael Chandler, but usually it's more from his aggression. Justin Gaethje was destroying Tony Ferguson by counterpunching him. He dropped Rafael Fiziev with a counterpunch, and he's landed so many big shots like this, hurting his opponents. And this counter style should take precedent against Paddy. Let Paddy extend himself to run into these counters, recognize the lead hand probe and feint, and punish the long jab. Paddy is a big kicker, but he doesn't set them up that well. He uses the same feint for that too sometimes. But not only that, I think Gaethje has the faster hand speed. I think he's much quicker on the trigger. He's landed some big shots in the open. I mean, a lot of his punches that he has landed were just in the open, like without much of a setup. He just explodes as quickly as possible. He's a very athletic guy. I mean, he landed a right overhand on Rafael Fiziev merely from sheer explosiveness. And Fiziev is incredibly quick. He did this both to Tony and Fiziev, landed the shot, with there being a 5-year gap in between those fights, and he's still fast enough to land that shot like that, right? This illustrates Gaethje's just impressive general speed, but speed is very different than length, right? Fiziev is small, he's short. Gaethje has a much longer distance to cover when he's fighting Paddy, right? So I think he's going to have that hand speed advantage, quickly getting in there, potentially landing some shots, but again, the only issue is going to be that length, right? By the time he measures the distance accurately, I think that's when he's going to probably get ahead. If Gaethje conquers the long range by parrying the jabs, checking or evading the leg kicks, and adjusting and recognizing the probes, Paddy's going to have to get this fight to the ground, or it's going to get really ugly for him in the stand-up. Paddy will blitz to find some power shots, and he has respectable power, but the form is just not all there. The defenselessness is very consistent when Paddy's blitzing forward or just throwing some big shot aggressively. He doesn't tuck his chin when he throws, and he drops his hands. So if Gaethje could just merely defend, evade those shots, the counters are there for him. I mean, look at the form, dude. Paddy is bringing his rear foot off of the ground. Chin is forward. His head is leaned further than his feet. His hands are dropped. Like, this is just his chin on a platter for Gaethje to counter with a simple backstep. So even the backstep counters are there for Gaethje, but the kicks is something that we have to talk about because both guys have pretty good kicks, man. But I think the one who's stepping into them while checking and then countering with an overhand is going to be the one that's winning those exchanges, right? That is something that Tony did against Paddy. He stepped into the leg kick, the step acting as a natural check, and then counters over the top with an overhand. I think both fighters can do this against each other. They aren't consistent with setting up their leg kicks though. A few times they will throw a feint first, but many times they're just banging out those leg kicks with no setups. But they need to be defended regardless, dude. Both guys need to check them or simply lift their lead leg above and cause a big follow through. This is what Chandler did to Paddy Pimblett actually. Just lifted his leg above it and look at the imbalance because the kick missed. So both can do this obviously, but this video is for Gaethje. So that is something that he definitely needs to do. Defending the leg kicks is a must. Another thing that Gaethje has to watch out for is getting conditioned from the body kicks. If Paddy's throwing a lot of body kicks, maybe even switching to southpaw, which he can do. He has thrown left kicks from that stance with pretty good form too. Just like Fiziev did, he could condition Gaethje for the head kick. I mean, look at this, dude. Shin goes right above Gaethje's head. As he leans into it, dude, Paddy could condition these attacks as well, causing a lean into the head kick just like that. And it might be easier to condition than just off the body kick because Justin Gaethje likes to duck his head into collisions. Now, I don't know if he should be doing this against Paddy Pimblett because it does put him in a position to potentially get clinched up, taken to the ground or something. Paddy could try to submit him even from the stand up. Like, there's many things that he can do there if Gaethje ducks into a potential clinch. But he can also land certain powerful shots on the disengagement as well. You saw that a lot against Rafael Fiziev. He ducks his head into the opponent throwing shots, or he clinches up with them and then lands a disengaging shot. So that can neutralize some of the initial aggression from Paddy. It could also make the takedowns more difficult to land because he's meeting the level change sometimes. He doesn't really squat down though the way Michael Chandler did here. So as you can see here, Chandler ducks his head as well, but he squats and he's also shorter. So there's more work to get under on those hips. When Justin Gaethje ducks, he doesn't always squat like this. Sometimes he just leans forward. So the takedowns can be countered by this duck and some of the aggression, but the flying knee can be extremely dangerous, dude. Paddy Pimblett throws stuff like flying knees in. If Gaethje ducks into one of those, the fight can end very quickly. So that, as well as Paddy's uppercut, could be a very good interception while Gaethje ducks like that. But if those techniques miss, Paddy's going to put himself into the fire to get countered by Gaethje because Gaethje's very quick to retaliate with his power punches from those type of exchanges, especially when it's in the clinch. So if, Paddy throws a flying knee, it doesn't land, and then he ends up in the clinch with Gaethje because of the collision, Gaethje is going to disengage with punches. That is something he did so often against Fiziev, not just disengaging and allowing the opponent to get away. He made sure to get a shot in there before he exits. And those type of shots can be very powerful because it's not only an overhand, it's not only an uppercut, it can also be a head kick from the clinch, bro. Gaethje has one of the sneakiest head kicks in the game. He'll throw it from the clinch, he'll throw it in retaliation when the opponent throws one at him, and he's very fast with them too. Even the Muay Thai specialist, Rafael Fiziev, didn't react well to them. If someone like him was not able to recognize the head kick in those moments, I find it very hard to believe that Paddy Pimblett will. And of course, we don't have to mention that he knocked out Dustin with this too. So it is not only Paddy Pimblett who's going to be throwing head kicks. Gaethje doesn't throw them quite often, but he throws them in moments that you least expect it. Very sneaky head kicks from Gaethje, dude. And if Paddy's dropping his hands, disengaging from the clinch, that head kick could follow up and crack him right across the head and KO him. So that is pretty much the breakdown of the Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett fight. This is not a prediction, this is not to say that Gaethje's gonna win. I think though this fight will be much more competitive than a lot of people are expecting. And I think Gaethje's chances are being overlooked here, and it's understandable because Paddy does have a huge advantage on the ground, but it doesn't mean that the fight is going to go there. Gaethje has a realistic game plan that he can develop to win this fight. He has the skills, he has the technique, he has the athletic attributes, all in combination to absolutely win this fight. So I'm expecting a very good one. I think both fighters have a lot to work with here, and I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.